You are now listening to the ReEducation podcast.
Stephen, I really want to know, like, how did you get involved in the criminal justice system? Like, where did it start?
Well, I was sharing the story at an event yesterday, and in fact, it was a pretty interesting comment by another lawyer who said, "Well, every lawyer says that. I was 10 years old. I used to go home at lunchtime, and there used to be a program called Crown Court on, and I love that program. I love the music. I can still hear it ringing in my head." Um, but from my perspective, I was a young 10-year-old black boy growing up in Thornton Heath in Surrey, Croydon. And when I looked on the screen, I didn't see black lawyers. I didn't see a black judge. Sometimes I'd see a black defendant in the dock who was part of the storyline. So my informed ambition was not the same as the white lawyer who was at this event yesterday, because he saw people who looked like him. So it was a natural aspiration for him. Whereas for me, I had to get past the color thing and think, I just love the look of this job. And then my thought was, well, I don't see anyone who looks like me, but nonetheless, that's not going to deter me. I want to know more about this profession. I love the articulacy. I love the drama of the courtroom. And so I used to go to the library and get books out on famous criminal cases. And my parents were really worried because they thought, gosh, our kid is getting books out about crime and looking up serial killers. They didn't understand that I was just fascinated by the psyche of why people commit offenses, what happened in the trial, what was the outcome, who were the lawyers, what were the arguments. And so, that was where my interest in law was birthed. But of course, we didn't have the internet in those days. So anything you wanted to find out, you had to go to the library. But I was also fortunate that my cousin, who's much older than me, was already a practicing barrister. So he was one of the very few first black barristers practicing, and he wasn't even practicing in the area of criminal law. He was an employment lawyer. And I remember hearing stories from him about what it was like to be black at the bar practicing law. And by the time I got to secondary school, one of my closest friends, his older brother, was about to go off to do a law degree. And then by the time I went through my secondary school, he was already at the bar practicing. So I had these two people I could look to. But that was where my interest was born. And then obviously I went down the traditional route of doing a law degree, going to law school. And I always tell the young people, look, it wasn't without its difficulties. And I love to share my failures because it's in sharing your failures that you inspire the youth to say it's okay to fall. Because when you fall, it strengthens you and it allows you to reach those heights that you set for yourself when you had that dream. I love dreams. I love when young people dream about doing amazing things. When I watch the story of Lewis Hamilton as a 6-year-old kid going go-karting, I share it with the youngsters when I do my mentoring. Listen, the dream starts, the hard work then follows, and the reward will come. And so when people see this guy who's about to break Schumacher's record, they only see, a lot of the young generation, they only see the end result of a guy who earns millions now, has a private jet, but they don't know the hard work that went in to get to that position. And I always encourage people, know people's journey, know their story, warts and all, the failures. And I regularly tell people, look, yeah, I'm a lawyer, successful lawyer, 27 years practice, but I'm going to tell you how I got here, my failed O-levels, my failed A-levels, my failure at bar school, and I had to resit the exam. No one asks me about that now, almost 10 years later, but I did fail. But what was more important was that in that area of failing was the chance to grow the resilience, the strength of character, the determination. And these are the tools you're going to need in any walk of life. I don't care whether you want to be a plumber, electrician, doctor, lawyer, accountant. All of those things are relevant. The character building. So, that was my journey into law. And it was tough back then because when we were looking to get into chambers to do our pupillage, many young black lawyers were told there's no room for you to be a commercial lawyer or a trust lawyer or the more sexier parts of the law where you earn lots of money. We were all told, you know, go and be a common law lawyer, a criminal lawyer, a family lawyer. And for many of us, that was the only way we could actually get into the profession. So we accepted it. And, you know, I'm proud of my journey in criminal law because actually I found my calling. I found the area of law where I'm most effective as an advocate in court, fighting for people. I love making closing speeches. I love the power that you have to change people's minds and opinions. So I'm not ashamed to be a criminal lawyer at all. I think we do a really valuable work in the community. We represent often those who are the most disadvantaged in society. And of course, you know, what we see is, sadly, there are not enough black people in the judiciary. When I started, there were fewer black lawyers, but there are so much more, many lawyers now. And I remember when I first went to court, you know, I remember 1994, I walked into a London court with my suit and my bag, and the security guard said to me, "Which case are you in today, sir? I can't see your name on the list." And I said, "Well, you won't see my name on the list because I'm the barrister." And he was looking at me in a sort of really quirky way. And I said, "Look in my bag." And he looked in the bag, and there was my wig and gown and my copy of Archbold, you know, the criminal practitioner's book. And so he smiled and said, "I'm really sorry," and let me in. And that, I have to say, was my only experience of this sort of prejudice where people just perceive that you're a person on trial. So when I heard the stories of Alexandra Wilson recently, who talked about being referred to as the defendant on more than one occasion in the same day, I was shocked that this is still happening in the 21st century where there are so many more black lawyers. But of course, our judiciary is still devoid of black judges. I can name 2 or 3 full-time circuit judges who are black. I'm not talking of Asian, Afro-Caribbean. I can only think of 2. There are many part-time judges, what we call recorders, but circuit judges 2, high court judges none. So we have to do something with the next generation of lawyers coming through. My time may be too late now, but we need a new crop of lawyers who are coming through, who have that aspiration to be the judges. Because certainly in the criminal justice system, when you have people of color on trial and they have people who look like them who are the judges, it just reinforces the fact that you feel like you're having a proper, fair trial in a criminal justice system which is wholly reflective of the society in which you live. You can't do anything about the selection of the jury. We're not in America where you can readily challenge jurors for cause unless you have a very good reason. They're picked at random. But certainly the people representing you and the judges who are trying you should reflect the society we live in. And, you know, as a black lawyer, I don't criticize my colleagues in the profession, but sometimes I worry about the advice that our young black men are given by lawyers. So, you know, I recently heard of a few cases where families have approached me, young men on trial for murder, where they have on no comment in interview, and they don't even give evidence in trial in their own defense on a murder case. What is it make? And I can understand where there might be tactical reasons to do it, or you're worried about how your defendant might hold up under cross-examination. But listen, if I was on trial for my life on a murder case, you better believe I'm going to speak. Even if I'm time with the prosecution, or there may be some uncomfortable question. If I haven't done it, I'm speaking. That worries me that some people are being advised to say nothing in their own defense. And then when they're found guilty, you know what happens? The family come to a black lawyer saying, "We need your help to try and lodge an appeal." And then I have to tell them that, listen, you can't just appeal just like that. There has to be solid grounds.
Especially in America.
Of the Court of Appeal. They're not going to look at it. And my heart bleeds when I see a young person's life ruined.
Because of that, I mean, that whole no comment thing. I remember I ran a youth club in So I live and I grew up in Wandsworth. I still live in Wandsworth. It's not like I've left yet. But I used to run a youth club in Battersea, and we had this lovely woman, Sarah. She has an organization called Streetwise Law, and she's a white woman.
Oh, yeah.
And she came into the youth club and was giving young people information about stop and search, and the request for a legal representative. Like, don't feel that you have to go into the questioning with a police officer or whoever else alone, and that whole no comment, which is, that's all we see on the television.
That's the first one they tell you to
Let's
say.
just be very clear. Any program that I've watched that involves going to the police station and being questioned, all you hear is no comment, no comment, no comment, no comment, no comment. And it's just like, that is not going to serve you anything. And it goes back to what I said earlier, not being able to see how your actions now impact the very, very near future. Like, you sit here and say no comment because somebody has advised you, oh, it's nothing, they can't really do this, they can't really take this away from you, they can't force you to do. No, that this will have an impact, and the advice that needs to be given.
Say no comment though, because they do tell you to say no comment straight away. It's pretty much standard. Okay, they're gonna ask.
But that's the only reason they say that is obviously so that the prosecution can disclose, and once they disclose, then you know what they've got. So then obviously, then you can then make a decision as to whether or not you're gonna then put your hands up or fight. Do you know what I mean? Because now you have know what they've got on you and the direction that they're going. So that's the reason why most people go no comment. But this is also something, which hampers them even when they're arrested on their own. Yeah. Because I was like that. When I was arrested on my own, I gave a statement because it's just me. There's no one else to be impacted or affected by it. Yeah. And obviously if it does go to trial, by doing that, you've obviously put yourself in a position where this is the position I'm defending from. Yeah. Whereas if you go no comment, there is no position you're defending from, because everything you try to say on the day, they will say, well, hold on a minute, that's just, you're using that as a way of manipulating the situation because you've now heard everything. So now you're trying to, now
you're going to come with your defense, when now is the time to kind of go back on the defense that you should have given and elaborate on it a bit more. But now there is none. Like, there's nothing. There's no comment. And also knowing when to plea and not to plea, if you see what I'm saying. Because sometimes you've got a situation, and this was also me, and this is the reason why I said to you that, I as a person who was an offender or a criminal, my view on what I did and how I did it was a lot different than a lot of people that I worked with. My view, I had already made peace with whatever the consequences are going to come, right? Most people don't do that. And this is the same thing for, like, knife crime, gun crime. Yeah, you've got a lot of young people who are arming themselves, right? And going out into the public and not being aware of that. Obviously, when you have that kind of weapon on you, subconsciously you're forced to use it when you're confronted, because you think that you have got the more powerful stance in the argument because you're thinking, I'm armed. Yes? Same with a gun, right? You've got the power because obviously you've got the firearm. But my argument is this. Before I picked that up and put it in my waist and go out onto the street, I knew to myself there was 4 or 5 things that could ever happen. Yeah, I can go and come back home safely. I could get arrested. I could go out there and get shot by the police because I'm known for carrying a firearm. I could go out there and get shot by somebody who is an enemy. Yeah, or I can shoot somebody myself. Yeah, so those are the possibilities. Those are the realities of when you pick up a knife or a gun and go out there into the public. That's what you're faced with. And if you haven't made peace with all of those consequences, I say, don't pick it up in the first place. Leave it at home. If you know that those are the consequences, and any of those consequences are a problem for you, that you think, whoa, then that's not you. That's not who you are. That's not who the person you are. You're following a situation because you feel that you have to, because your crew is, you know, like that. They carry knives, so I have to carry a knife. I was like that, you know. When I started to get into firearms was because the people I associated with were known for firearms. Yes. And eventually, me being with them, I found I had to arm myself because their enemies are my enemies.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna, and that person's not gonna come along and say, oh, well, you know, okay, Adrian, he doesn't carry a gun. So, you know, sweet, we'll leave him, we'll go look for the one who's got the gun. No, they're gonna use me as an example no matter what, right? So you're now in that position because you're now following the people that you're around, you know, and with that comes its own nightmare, you know, because like I just said, you know, their enemies become your enemies. So even this is somebody that you ain't got nothing to do with, or, you know, but they saw you with your pal 2 days ago, but you and the pal, this other guy's got beef. When he sees you, he's going to step to you. And obviously you're now in a position where you're either going to have to use it or it be used on you. And this is the predicament that we've got. So young people are not informed. They're carrying it and they're doing what they're doing. But the whole thing of thinking it through, you know, isn't there. Because if you ask Stephen, when they get sentenced for murder, all of the bravado is gone.
Your friends ain't in the cell with you. Your friends ain't in the cell next to you.
You know, I regularly talk about this, and, you know, it's a message that I'm so keen for the youngsters to hear. And I say to the families, listen, I go downstairs. Let's take the Old Bailey, for example. I'm in what we call the bowels of the court. That's right down in the cells. And I see these kids on the day when verdicts are due. All the bravado that was at the start of the trial when people think they're going to bust case, and they get led up to the courtroom knowing that that verdict is coming. And then I see them standing in the public gallery, in the dock, when the foreman of the jury is asked, have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed? On count one, on the charge of murder, how do you find the defendant, guilty or not guilty? And you literally can hear a pin drop. And as I say, when you hear the G, you know it's guilty. And then that's quickly followed by the wails and screams from the public gallery of mothers and relatives who know what's coming. Then I go down with the defendant after the hearing, because they're not often sentenced immediately.
Yes.
And I sit in a cell with them, and you can see some of them literally shaking, some of them crying, some of them saying they want their mum, because they realize that it's not a video game.
No.
Real. This is real.
Yeah, this ain't Top Boy.
Murder. You've just been convicted of murder, and you're now going to get the mandatory life sentence. And your brethren ain't there. The brethren who were on road with you when stuff was happening, you're on your own. I've been in cases where people have turned Queen's evidence, because at the end of the day, when you're on trial for your life and the prosecution wants to do a deal with another,
all man for himself,
he's going to take it. As Adrian says, it's every man for himself. So I want to dispel with the rumor of my brethren's got my back. And Adrian and I were talking about this just yesterday, where once you've got that sentence, the brethren who says, yeah, I'm going to come and check you in prison when you send out your VO, they'll come for like 2-3 weeks if you're lucky. Then after that, you don't see them again. The girlfriend who said that she loved you, well, maybe she might wait a month or two.
Put her love on pause.
You're on a long sentence. Very few of them will wait 15 years for you. So you're on your own. The only person, as I say, who remains a constant, God spare her life if she's able to see the sentence through, is your mum.
Wow. And that is so, so true. You know, family members are the key, because, you know, like you just said, Stephen, what happens is that you get outgrown. Yes. And this is what they don't seem to realize, that, and I always say this to young people. I said, you know, don't be afraid to outgrow your circle. Yeah. You know, even from like school, this is because at the end of the day, these guys that you're going to school with, the chances are of that you're going to become lifelong friends until your old age and you've all got kids and all of that is very rare. Very rare. It might happen to maybe 1 or 2 people in the whole school that they end up being friends for life. You know, but what happens is people move on, move to different countries, different areas, so forth. So, you know, this thing of being loyal to your circle, I did for, you know, 30 odd years, being loyal to my circle, doing time for my circle, taking the hit because of this, you know, street loyalty kind of you know, thing. But, you know, at the end of the day, like you just said, you know, when you're doing a length, that sentence at that kind of length, listen, man, within 18 months, everybody that you had around you when you got sentenced has moved on. You know, they found the new guy who is the guy. You know, your name is no longer wrecked on road, because unless you've got a family member or a brother or sister who is still on the street doing what you were doing beforehand, your name's dead. The VOs stop going, the visits stop coming, you know, the money stop coming, you know, and there's nothing worse. Listen, there's nothing worse than being ghosted on a visit. You know, it is.
Gets their person.
Yeah, it's such an important event. You know, people look forward to their visits. You know, they get showered, they cut their hair. You know, they want to look presentable because this is the contact to the world. You know, you're going to see your loved one, your girlfriend, your mom, whoever, whatever, and you're emotionally preparing yourself for days for that visit. You know, because it's like you're so excited, you know, and then when you get there, to have one of your pals or somebody like that just don't turn up because he went out last night and he got wasted and he's still in bed sleeping. You're ringing his phone and he's still out. And then he'll give you some excuse, oh, bruv, you know what? I was mad last night, you know, got wasted, sorry. And that's, you know, and that's what you got to look forward to if it's not family members. Because at least I always knew with my partner, that was the only VO I really sent out. My partner, my kids, nobody else, you know? And if my missus didn't turn up, I mean, I'm lucky, like I said, no matter where in the country I was, I got 2 visits a month, no matter where in the country I was, you know? And if she didn't turn up, I knew something's wrong.
Yeah.
You know, something's wrong as to why she didn't get there. But it's not the same when you've just got casual friends who, you know, you and them ain't got nothing no more. You're not making money no more. You're not out partying no more. So that link that you think was there and that will never end has been separated, it's been severed, and they've moved on, you know?
And you know the other thing that I remember saying this to one young man, and then he started crying. I said, listen, the only thing you were asked to do by your mother, who was working 2 jobs, was to take your little sister to school. She relied on you to take your little sister to school. And because you chose to follow your brethren, rather than do what you were supposed to do, you're now going to be serving a life sentence. And he started wailing. Then I said to him, you told me about your grandmother, the respect that you had for your grandmother. And now I've broken it down to you that you're unlikely to even be able to attend that woman's funeral.
Wow.
Because you're inside now, and the prison might not even give you compassionate leave to go outside. So the 2 people who you respect the most in this world, you've let them down. And this is how far your actions reach. It's not about you. It's not about you and your brethren. You're affecting, we talked about it earlier, the ripple effect. And that young man, he looked at me and he realized then that, you know, his act, his selfish act really had cost him not just his own liberty, but the liberty of looking after his younger sister and possibly missing valuable time with his grandmother. This is what we're talking about.
I mean, that kind of segues us onto talking about the impact that a person going to prison has on, you know, your loved ones outside, because it's something that when one person goes to prison, everyone in their family or everyone connected to them also goes along on that sentence too. So yes. Alicia, kind of shared already that you've had different loved ones being in prison in your time growing up. Mm-hmm. How did that impact you?
I think with my dad, it was just like strange, because I think at the time I was quite young. I think I was like 7 when he first went to prison, and I'd always had my dad. So for me, it was just like, oh, he's gone, like what? And they couldn't really give me no explanation that made any sense for me. I didn't know what my dad was doing. As far as I'm concerned, he's just my dad. He cooks my dinner and that sort of thing. So the explanation for me didn't make any sense. All I know is that my dad's gone, he's not at home anymore, and we're going to go on this long drive every weekend to go and see him. And we're only going to see him for like an hour or something like that. So for me, it just, if I'm lucky. So it didn't make any sense. But to be fair, like what we were talking about with the visits and all of that, my mum went every weekend. So I feel like she either went every weekend or every other weekend, but I knew we were going to see my dad. So we continued to visit him and always saw him, but I just didn't understand it from that standpoint of where he was, why we had to go through all of these searches and different things to see him for an hour. And in terms of like when my dad was in prison, my grandmother got sick, and she had a stroke, and he didn't know if he would be able to come and see her or anything like that. So I feel like that side of things really, I feel like I remember that time where it affected him, like on the visits, they would have that conversation and stuff like that. So as a child, I didn't understand it. When I got older, like my dad went to prison for quite a while. And when he came out, I feel like the relationship between him and my mum had broken down, even though she had consistently gone to visit him and everything like that. Again, I was a child, I don't understand what happened between them, but I know that it was totally different when he came back out, and it wasn't my normal mum and dad after that. So I know that something changed within their relationship. When I got older and I've realized what prison is and all of this sort of stuff, and I dealt with it as a girlfriend, because my son's dad went to prison, it was very hard. Your whole life changes. You now are the only person that you can rely on, where you was in this relationship where you both had, or you were both contributing to looking after a child and all of this stuff. And I was quite young at that point. So for me, it was like a slap in the face. Yeah. So, you know, it sounds bad, but I reaped the benefits of whatever he was doing that made him go to prison. So now it's like, okay, so you're going to reap the benefits of him being in prison now. And for me, that was hard. It was a whole life adjustment. I felt like I had to grow up a lot in that time. And then you look at it from the other perspective, you have a son. Will this be the journey that he takes? Because his dad has gone into prison at a young age. He doesn't know his dad, because he went in when he was months old and came back when he was a couple of years old. So he doesn't know his dad. He doesn't have a relationship with his dad. As much as you go to the visits and you take these children, that is not enough for them to get to know anybody, as far as I'm concerned. And then you have the ups and downs of their emotions, because there would be times where he would say, I don't want any visits. And it's like, okay, you know, I'm trying here to hold you down, as they put it. You know, I'm sending you money, I'm doing what I need to do from the outside, you know, I'm writing to you and all of this stuff, and then you're just going to turn around and say, I don't want a visit. For me, that was hard as well. So just as hard as it is for the prisoner when they don't get a visit, it's hard for the person on the outside when they just shut down and they're like, oh, I don't want a visit, don't come and see me, tell my mum I can't talk to her right now. And then you've got his mum asking you, you know, is he okay? Did something happen? And I'm like, I'm just as in the dark as you are.
And it's not like you can just pick up the phone and call them. You have to wait for them
to call you. And then you've got the side of it where you miss a call. It's like, God forbid you miss their call, because it's like they're looking forward to speaking to you, and you were busy, you might be at work, you might be doing something, and then the next time you speak to them, they're really upset. It's like, oh, I called you,
the emotions,
and now, and you didn't pick up the phone, I didn't know what was going on. And obviously I feel like that bit kind of plays on their mind in terms of trust, you know, or outside, and they don't know what you're doing because you're living your life. As far as they're concerned, anything could be happening. You could be checking the next man. You know, was she really at work when she said she was at work? So you have all these, it's too much emotions, I feel.
They got nothing, you've got nothing but time to think, overthink, overreact.
Everything.
Like it just, and then as you've expressed and you know you've shared, it impacts the dynamic of the relationship with your loved ones outside. Like how I don't even know how it must feel for a man being in prison to see his son every so often, and the son just isn't interested, or even daughter, the son or daughter, your child is coming to see you, you're watching them grow through pictures and through the odd visits here and there. And then again, depending on whether you're sentenced, how much VOs you get, depending on whether you're near or far, how they're gonna come and see you. You know, there's so much different things going on. Then if you've had a fight, you don't want them to see you, you know, maybe bruised or cut. Then you've got issues with people in the visits itself. It's like, are they going to attack me, or are they going to try and attack my family? Like, are they now trying to? There's so much stuff. I don't think that people fully realize that.
No, and they don't realize how far
it's going on.
It spreads, and how it's kind of like, it's very draining sometimes to have to deal with the emotions of somebody you're not seeing, and you're only really speaking to them through a letter, and sometimes that can even be, you know, what they're writing and how they're saying it can be
misinterpreted.
So sometimes that is quite painful.
I mean, because like my partner used to say to me, when I write letters to her, I'm talking to her, but when I speak to her on the phone, I'm talking at her. You know, because obviously it's a short phone call and you've got so much in your head that you want to try and either tell her to, can you do this to me? Can you help this? Can you do this? So that kind of emotional contact isn't really there until you actually sit down and write a letter, because now it's like you can outpour your emotions onto the paper, you know? So I understand that. And it is difficult, but it's difficult for the guy as well. Briefly, let me, you know, I mean, because I had the same situation, you know, on one of my sentences. I went to prison. I left, my son was 4 months old.
Wow.
When I came back, he was 5, you know, something like that. And it puts a massive break in the relationship, you know, of you reuniting, you know, because this person has got their own personality, and you're a stranger coming into their world, you know. As much as, yes, you're their dad, you're still a stranger coming into their world, you know, because they see you once every fortnight or once every month. Or so, like you said, you know, this is not somebody who is in their life every day, dealing with them, making breakfast, picking them up, changing them, and you know, those things are not happening. So that emotional separation, it is quite difficult. It is quite difficult. And it's a strain, massive strain on both sides, you know, and as far as like the inside where, you know, you were saying that, you know, your fellow might say doesn't want to visit. I mean, sometimes you feel like that. You feel, you know, that, you know, that nothing's happening, you know. And it's like when you go out on that visit, you want to leave with those people.
You got to watch.
You want to leave with those people. You don't want to wave to them no more. And sometimes that emotional baggage, as much as, yes, it's difficult for your partner, sometimes obviously people just opt to just like, you know what, let me just stay in this hole.
Yeah.
I understand this.
Let me
I
just
can
do
cope
my
with
time.
this.
Let me get it.
Yeah, I can cope with this, you know, because you ask 90% or 100% of all the people who are serving sentences right now, maybe not those who are first sentence, but those who have been there a few times. Yeah. If you ask all of them, they will say to you that once they're in prison, they're not worried about them. They're not worried about themselves. They're worried about outside. They're worried about, you know, when the partner phones and says, oh, you know, bills are coming through the door, I can't pay them, I'm falling into debt, you know, oh, the kid is sick or this, and you are helpless. Your hands are tied, and also as well, knowing the fact that you put yourself there and you can't help.
I also wanted to touch on, like, when they're in prison, it's as if they have this mentality of when they come out, life is going to be like this, and I'm going to get a job, and I'm not going to do what I was doing before, and blah, blah, blah. And then when they come back out, sometimes I feel like they don't stick to all the things that they were saying in prison. I feel like that is sometimes quite hard on the relationship as well. You've gone into prison for whatever reason, yeah, we get it. But it's as if they fall back into the same habits when they come back out.
But that is the reason why I'm involved in this, because that's where the system is broken. Yes, that is where the system is broken, because at the end of the day, you cannot have a situation where you're going to put somebody who's an habitual criminal into prison, don't do no focus work with them, and I'm not talking about what you do on the OMU, you know, the normal coursework, you know, that kind of stuff, right? I'm talking about having a system in place where before these people go to prison, pre-sentence report finds out what skill, what do they want to do? What is it that if they weren't being a criminal,
they would do?
What is it that they would want to do?
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to tap into what people love and work on that instead of pushing what you think they should have. That's the difference. Yes. So if pre-sentence report, they say, well, look, okay, I'm a bit of a mechanic, you know, the prison system as it is at the moment is not equipped in that way. So let's say Wandsworth that's all they do is a mechanic. That's all they do in that prison. They don't do anything else, you know, other than, you know, the standard education, maths, English stuff. But if you want to become a mechanic and you are in prison, go to Wandsworth, because they have got accredited mechanics teaching you that you're going to have a qualification that you can use when you come out of prison. But it's also got to be a system that's set up that it's a kind of a kind of incentive system, not what they've got now. I'm talking about an incentive system, whereas the judge says, you're going to do a 5-year sentence. You're going to do 2.5 years out of that sentence. You said you wanted to be a mechanic. I'm going to send you to Wandsworth.
Yeah.
2.5 years, you complete that course. You get a certificate. You come out, you get a job, right? If you do not complete that course in 2.5 years, you stay in prison. Now, I'm telling you, right? I am telling you now that I'm not saying it's a foolproof system, but it's better than what we've got now, because most of these guys will get up off their bed and apply themselves because they do not want to stay in jail one day over those 2.5 years, right? So that motivates them to actually achieve the goal, come out, have a job, and then that in itself starts to erode that belief system that they've got. Because what happens is, you talk good when you're in prison, clarity, you know, you're not smoking, you're not doing this, you're not out partying, you know. So now you've got clarity, you've got tunnel vision, you know everything that you need to do, and you're clear, crystal clear. But then once you come back into society, that gets clouded because you're vulnerable. One, you've got all your boys waiting for you, right? People who are going to offer you and take you down the road that you were before. right? You try to get a job, you can't get a job because you didn't come out of jail with any qualifications. So now you're starting to get disappointed and disgruntled with yourself. So what you do, you press the default button.
And go back to what you
right?
know.
And the default button is right back to where you were because you know that, you understand that. That was what makes sense to you. You see what I'm saying? And this is the reason why the system's broken. And this is where I'm saying that we have to stop all of these private contracts in prison and having chop shop labor, right? Paying prisoners 50p a session, right? And getting contracts from big companies where they're earning real money from those contracts. And this is the prison system I'm talking about, right? Instead of doing that, why not use the same private contractors, but in a training situation? You know, get the AA in there, get these, you know, the one thing that I saw that was close to it was with, Chef Ramsay, and they were doing it in Wandsworth Prison called Click. Was it Click?
Yeah.
No, it was Brixton.
Oh, it was Brixton. Yes, actually,
yeah,
it was Brixton.
Is it Bad Boy Bakery?
It's something, but
yeah,
having someone like him,
probably alongside Clinks, because Clinks has restaurants inside
right.
different prisons. Brixton is one of them. But that was
that was a blueprint right there. That was a blueprint because you had a credible chef coming into the prison, teaching these guys, you know, real cooking, you know, stuff that they can go out and join a kitchen anywhere, qualification to join a kitchen anywhere. That's the reality. That is what we need, because a lot of these guys are going to prison. They've left school like myself with no qualifications. They've either got reading or different problems, ADHD, this, that, they're all world of underlying issues. Yeah. And all you're talking about is putting them in a box, holding them for X amount of years, releasing them back into community and expect that they're going to be a productive member of society. It's impossible. You know, it's absolutely impossible.
I just love how this conversation has flourished and the different experience that you've all been able to share. I hope that the listeners and viewers that are tuned in to this episode have, I hope that it's provoked thoughts, questions, and conversations outside of this. You know, I always drop my email in the description box below. So if anybody has any further questions on what we've discussed, any thoughts, comments, by all means, any suggestions for how we can continue these conversations. I definitely feel like there's an additional episode here where we actually talk about the life after those gates close, life after you've walked out of the prison and
well, yeah.
You know, I always get told about that slip that you're given, that one way that allows you to get from whatever prison it is, wherever you are in the UK. It's supposed
it's a travel warrant
to home. That's it, the travel warrant. And you know, just from the moment you received that and the goods that you came in, let's say you was in prison for 15 years or 10 years, like what do you leave with if you came in at 15 and you're leaving at 30? Do you leave with the phone that you had when you was arrested at the age of 50? Like, what do you leave? I mean, it's just, these are questions that I have. And I'm sure that everybody else, either listening, watching, or
well, we can do that. We can definitely do that on another.
Yeah, we can. Yes, I think that's where.
And from my perspective, if there is anything that I can do to help your situation, by all means, get in touch, let me know. Because for me, I'm just, to be quite honest, obviously, Organized Generation is, you know, it's in its baby stages right here, right now, you know. And as Zig Ziglar said, you know, the more people you help, the more you help yourself. See, so for me, I'm always kind of going in at that end, that if I can do something to help others, you know, promote their situation, eventually my situation will be lifted with that same tide in the end, you know. So that's where I'm at. You know?
Thank you.
I would be interested to be a part of the next conversation about what happens when they leave, because obviously that affects everybody as well with the circle.
Yeah, without doubt.
Stephen, any last words?
I do what I do because for me, life is always about choices. Some people say they don't have a choice, but we always have a choice. And, you know, when I think about the moment a child is born and that moment of celebration that you have as a parent, as a mother, as a father, as a relative, then you fast forward to 17 or 18 and you're standing in the dock about to be sentenced to life, or you're standing around the graveside mourning what that young person could have been, then that's why I do what I do, because I want young people to realize they have choices, that they weren't born to embark on a life of ruining their life or taking another life. They were born for a purpose, in a season, for a specific purpose and reason. And I want to try and help young people identify what that is so they can live full productive lives.
Yes. I think that deserves an amen.
Amen.
Definitely deserves an amen. Before I say bye, please share your social handles, how people can get in touch with you, how they can follow you.
Okay, so you can reach me on stephenakinsanya.com, Instagram at Life of Focus, and you can also find me on Life in Focus on the LCBN TV channel Freeview 271. You'll see all my work there and many of my videos.
I'm on Info Organized Generation. That's the website. So you can get in touch with me there. I'm on Instagram. I don't really put any much on the Instagram as such, but yeah, those are the platforms that I'm kind of on. But yeah, like I said, open and willing to work with anyone who wants to, you know, work with me, you know, because at the end of the day, this situation is, it's everybody in to solve the problem. You know, this is not a one-man show. It's not about, you know, your platform. It's about the message. And the message has to always be bigger than those who are bringing the message.
Mine is Alice the Blogger. So that is everything. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. It's all Alice the Blogger.
And don't worry if you are struggling to locate them on any of those socials right now as you're listening or watching, you could just look down in the description box. Everybody's handles, websites, email addresses, if they've shared, will be available down below. Again, thank you so much to you all, Stephen, Adrian, Alicia. I mean, it's been a wonderful, it's been a really, really powerful conversation. And I know it's provoked thought for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I definitely know there's a lot more of conversations like these to come. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. So thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in. Again, drop your comments down below. Hit me up on the email. Follow everybody's socials down below. Get in contact if you have any questions. And I just want to say, again, thank you. And I look forward to continuing to learn and grow with you all. Bye.
Bye.
Hi guys, it's Keanu again. You're listening to the ReEducation podcast.